Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Apokalypsis chapter 12, which is Revelation chapter 12. And pretty much been going over it, earlier today. I wanted to get the lesson done earlier, but had so much going on that I wasn't able to. So here we are now. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Ratazai will be edifying. And that's that, because life happens, you know what I mean? But anyway, we're just going to get right into it. It's pretty, if you understand the history of what was going on with Israel back then, mostly up until today, but there were certain events that were taking place back during the Roman Empire that pretty much capture the book of Revelation chapter 12. Salakir. And if you understand that history, then you will be able to understand somewhat this chapter here in Revelation, the 12th chapter. So let's get into it. You brothers that have been watching for a while, you already know the breakdown. But, we're just going to go into it because we've got to remember there are newer members waking up to the faith, learning. So we have to go over this over and over again, until the Lord, comes back and takes his devil out, and delivers us from the clutches of Satan. All right, so the heading here is the woman Israel. And that's exactly what it is, because you have these people in the Roman Catholic Church that try to associate this woman in the first verse with Mary, and that's why that's where you get the Queen of Heaven worship. They'll have so-called Mary, a so-called white woman with a crown on her head. They're trying to say that that's what this is. That has nothing to do with that. All right. I mean, Mary is mentioned in this chapter further down, but the first verse is dealing specifically with the nation of Israel. It says, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. This woman is the nation of Israel. And she was clothed with the sun and the moon on her feet, because the sun and the moon represent knowledge and wisdom. Now the Lord said that wisdom maketh a man's face to shine. And it also says that I will give you pastors according to my heart that will feed you with knowledge and understanding. All right. Then it goes on to say, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And that crown of 12 stars represent the nation of Israel in a rulership type position in the kingdom of heaven, being exalted, as kings and priests of the Most High, ruling in righteousness, setting up the next kingdom, under the Most High and Yahushai, and judging the whole world. All right. Now, let's go from there to Genesis 37, just to show you that those stars, I don't like the word star, those inside joke, those stars are talking about the nation of Israel. Genesis 37:9, and he dreamed yet another dream. This is dealing with Joseph, and told it his brethren, and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me, meaning they bowed down to him before him. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I, which Jacob represents the sun, and thy mother, which she represents the moon, and thy brethren, which represent the stars, because remember, it was 11 stars, because it was 12 altogether, indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. So that's just one of the many scriptures out there that you can use to prove that the stars in Revelation 12 is talking about the nation of Israel. All right. There's others, but that's just one. So moving on, It says, and she, being back in Revelation 12:2, and she, being with child, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And this is talking about the nation of Israel catching hell underneath the Roman Empire. Let's go real quick to Matthew chapter 11. Matthew chapter 11 and verse 11. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Because they were, we were catching hell underneath the Roman Empire. And that's why I said that she was crying, and she cried, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. So now let's go from there to the book of Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53 and 11. He, meaning the Most High, shall see of the travail of his soul, of Yahushai's soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, meaning Yahushai shall justify many. For he shall bear their iniquities, because our sins came upon him, our transgressions came upon him. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sins of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. And that's why she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered, because there was a deliverance that needed to be given to the nation of Israel. Because remember, as a whole, we didn't have any hope at that point. You had the Israelites in Israel that knew that they were Israelites that were totally going off, and you had the Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites among the nations that were totally going off. They were totally gone. So we needed someone there as an intercessor, a go-between, to be able to bring us back into the graces of the Most High, back to that reconciliation. And that's why what we teach is the gospel of reconciliation. So it's Micah 5 and 2. But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to rule in Israel. And there's many scriptures that say that. You go back to the book of Numbers, you go to the book of Isaiah and other books, and it tells you about Yahushua being a ruler of Israel, the king of Israel, which we're going to get to that a little later, Lord's will. It says, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. Yeah, because before the world was, he was there when the Most High created him. It says, therefore will he give them up, meaning Israel, unto the time that she, which travaileth, hath brought forth. And she that travaileth has brought forth is what? That's dealing with the nation of Israel. And how did she bring forth? She brought forth through Yahushai. And that's why the old man Simeon said, now lettest thou thy servant rest in peace, for I have seen the consolation of Israel, when he held Yahushai in his hands before his death. It says, then the remnant of his brethren shall return unto the children of Israel. Right, because there was a remnant that's going to be delivered of the nation of Israel. All right, now let's go from there to the book of Isaiah, back to Isaiah, the 66th chapter and the 7th verse. It says, before she travailed, meaning before Israel started catching hell and needed salvation, she brought forth. And how did she bring forth? Because Yahushua was said to have been predestined for that position and that sacrifice before the world began. It says, before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. And that man-child was who? Yahushua. So before any of this went down, before any captivities, of our forefathers happened, You know, from the beginning all the way till now, we were already delivered of a man-child, dealing with Yahushai. He came 2,000 years ago to fulfill that lot. So it says, who hath heard such a thing? Who hath seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? And the answer to that is no. Because you have to plant. You know, you have to dig, you have to plant, you have to water, you have to care, and eventually those seeds grow into whatever plant or tree or whatever the case was planted. So the prophet is asking the question, shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? And the answer to that is no. But it says, for as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. Why? Because Yahushua was already predestined to be the savior of the nation of Israel, to bring forth that deliverance, that salvation. All right. It says, shall I bring to the birth and not cause to bring forth? So the Lord is saying, look, if he's going to bring us all the way through all of the misery and all of the pains and the turmoils and the travails up until the point of where we're going to be delivered, through birth, is he not going to be able to bring forth also? Saith the Lord, shall I cause to bring forth and shut the womb, saith thy power? So the Lord is not going to shut the womb. He's going to keep it going till he delivers the nation of Israel through Yahushua. It says, rejoice ye with Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim, and be glad with her, all ye that love her. Rejoice for joy with her, all ye that mourn for her. Yeah. That you may suck and be satisfied with the breast of her consolation. That's why the Lord said that he's looking for who? Those that sigh and that cry for all abominations that be done in the midst thereof. That you may milk out and be delighted with the abundance of her glory. Yeah, because the ones that suffer are the ones that's going to receive the consolation. So it's just like Yahushua suffered and he received the consolation. And we're joint heirs with him. For thus saith the Lord, behold, I will extend peace to her like a river. And the glory of the Gentiles, which are the Israelite foreigners, like a flowing stream. Then shall you suck, you shall be borne upon her sides and be dandled upon her knees, because we're going to be pampered. You know? See, when there's another scripture, I believe it's the same one, either the 65th chapter or this one, that says that before we even fix our mouth to speak and ask for anything, we're going to receive it. We're going to be immersed in blessings, just like we're immersed in the curses right now. You know, that's why Yahushua said, through the mouth of the Apostle Paul, I have not seen, or through the mouth of Isaiah, I have not seen, neither ear heard the things which the Lord hath prepared for them that love him. Boy, what I tell you, I turn the goddamn TV down, and the goddamn thing just keep getting louder and louder. God damn it. Fucking Satan don't take no goddamn coffee breaks, that's for sure. God damn. Salakia. All right, so it says, as verse 13, as one whom his mother comforteth, so will I comfort you, and you shall be comforted in Yerushalayim. Yeah, because the Lord is going to be the one that's going to pamper us and comfort us and bound us up, and pretty much give us that consolation that we need. It says, and when you see this, your heart shall rejoice, and your bones shall flourish like an herb, and the hand of the Lord shall be known toward his servants, and his indignation toward his enemies. For behold, that's it right there. So we're going to see the upliftment and the upliftment and the glory that's going to be set upon us. And we're also going to see the downfall of our enemies. All right, so now going back, and she being with child, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. Then it says here, the red dragon, Satan. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. Now this great red dragon is a representation, with the 7 heads and 10 horns, is a representation of all of Esau's empires, beginning with the Greeks and ending with the British. And out of the British came out one more horn, the eighth horn, which was America, or the eighth head, should I say, which is America, which is nothing more than a revival of the ancient Roman Empire. And this is what most people don't understand and don't want to accept, because they want the word America to appear in the scriptures, and it's not going to come out that way. Because if it was, you've heard it say time and time again, they would have burnt these Bibles. They'd have banned these Bibles because they have the power to print them. So they would have banned it a long time ago. If you'd have seen words like, America, or the so-called white man, is the Edomite, and they are the devil. If it was plain like that, they would have got rid of these books long time ago. All right, so now let's go from there. Let's go to Revelation 17. And the ignorance comes from those that read the Bible and don't understand and don't know the history and don't have the Spirit working with them. Revelation 17 and 9. And there's certain keys within the scriptures that are broken down and explain what it means when it speaks about this, and when it speaks about a beast, or when it speaks about a horn, or when it speaks about whatever, a mountain. You see? Revelation 17:9. And here is the mind which has wisdom. So if you want wisdom, the Lord is about to break it down to the Apostle John what this beast that he saw in his vision is a representation of. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. Mountains represent governments. 7 governments. And these 7 governments were 7 empires of Esau that ruled. And that was beginning with the Greeks and ending with the British. It says, on which the woman sitteth, the woman being America. And the woman sitting on it because America was the 8th head. And she is sitting on those other European nations, because that's where she came from, and that's who is still upholding her. But those same ones are going to turn against her in the future. And we're in that time now. And there are 7 kings, which are 7 major rulerships. Beginning with the Greeks, the French, the Spanish, the Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and the British. 5 have fallen, because that happened. We've broken this down before. And one is the Roman Empire, and the other is not yet come, which was the British Empire. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space, and that's exactly what he did. So this is letting us know that this is not, that when we're reading in Revelation, whether it's the 12th chapter, the 13th chapter, the 17th chapter, or wherever it speaks about this red dragon, it's not talking about Satan. It's not talking about the devil, the actual spiritual demon, Satan. It's a world structure of people that have ruled in certain empires. And the reason why I called it red is because Esau is the red man. They are the true red men, and they try to put that stigma on Gad, the so-called North American Indians. All right, so now going back to Revelation 12 and 4, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, because the tail is known as one of the strongest parts of a dragon or a dinosaur. When they start swinging that tail, Behemoth, had this tail like a cedar. So they stamped this, the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, which were what? We established already in the first verse that the stars is a representation of the 12 tribes. So why did it say 3 stars when at first it spoke about 12 stars? Because there were only 3 stars mainly, as a whole in Rome at the time. You had a sprinkle of the other tribes, but the main 3 tribes was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Those are the 3 major tribes that were there. That's why I said that this dragon drew the 3rd, with his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven. And that is history. When you understand that there was a split or a separation between the two, between the nation of Israel. It says, and did cast them to the earth, and he did that. That's why they were tributary. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered. And this goes into what Herod did when he came against Jerusalem or Jerusalem, wanting to kill Yahushai, because the wise men came to him and told him that where is the king of Israel, for we have seen his star. And he got nervous because this is why he had killed, his wife Miriam. He had killed a lot of different heirs that could have been likely heirs to the actual throne, the real true heirs. He killed them off, and he was a madman, killing off a whole bunch of people because he didn't want his empire to be threatened by in any way. So it says, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And that's why when the wise men came to him, he wanted to he was being a phony, because he wanted them to let him know where this son was, so he can kill the son. All right, so before we get into that history, let's go real quick to Daniel chapter 12. I'm sorry, chapter 8 and verse 9, just to give you a little more proof on these stars. The little horn in this chapter of Daniel 8, the little horn represents Antiochus Epiphanes. All right. In the previous chapter, the little horn represents America. So you got to get it right. Daniel 8 and 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. This is dealing with after Alexander the Greek came into power. His kingdom was broken amongst mainly his 4 generals. And out of one of the lines of those generals, which was the Seleucid Empire, you had rulers that came up and ruled a particular region, what they call so-called Holy Syria, in that area there. It says, and this little horn that came forth was Antiochus Epiphanes, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land, which was in Israel. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven. And it cast down what? Some of the hosts of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. To let you know that Israel are also, this is another scripture to prove that Israel are the stars. Now, this has nothing to do with Revelation 12, because this is a different time period, and this was the Greek Empire that did this. But the point is that they also came against the stars of heaven. All right, now let's go real quick to another one, but this one is not dealing with the stars, but it's dealing with the persecution of the sons of Israel, because the women didn't pose a threat. It was the men. Exodus 1 and 16. It says, and he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. See? And this is another great slaughter that happened to the sons of Israel, during the time of the Egyptian Empire. And it happened again during the time of the Roman Empire, because Herod was working for the Romans. He was an Edomite just like they were Edomites, but they looked at each other as two different individuals. Now let's go from there. Let's go to the history that we just read in Revelation, the 12th chapter, in the 4th verse, dealing with the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. This is Matthew 2 and 1. And now when Yahushai was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him, because you had a bunch of Sambos that were upholding the crown of this devil, this Edomite. Now you can read the rest of the history. Now we're just going to jump down to the 11th verse. It says, and when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down, this is the wise men, and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh, and being warned of the Most High in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. Right? So that, because the Lord said, "Nah, don't go tell that devil nothing." So there was a point from when they went to Herod till they seen Yahushai, until they went home, before Herod started getting antsy about his inquisition. So it was about a period of about 2 years. He waited and waited and waited and waited, and nothing, no news came. So Matthew 2:13, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, "Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt." So what was this? This was a great deliverance for Yahushai. Because the Lord, prior to anything going down, the Lord delivered him out of that situation. "And be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him." And we were just reading about this in the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter. "When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, and was there unto the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked," see, Herod slaughters babies. "Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children, which were the sons, that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they were not, or they are not." So there were a lot, because you had Rachel, you had Jacob, he had four wives, and then you had 2 concubines, and they all had children. Now Rachel, she had what? She had Joseph and she had Benjamin. So we know that Joseph, namely Ephraim and Manasseh, were already over here in this side of the world. So the majority of the people, or the sons that were slain, were a lot of Benjaminites that were in the land of Jerusalem and those surrounding areas where Herod went to destroy it. And this is a part of the prophecy. Now let's go from there to Jeremiah 31 real quick. And 15. It says, boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, Jeremiah 31:15. Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentations and bitter weeping. Rachel, weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children, because they were not. Thus saith the Lord, refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears, for thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord, and they shall come again from the land of the enemy, because all of this blood that was shed by Esau, and the other nations too, but we're dealing with Esau, all that is going to be exacted back upon him, and we're going to be justified, when the Lord delivers us and consoled, because of like we read in Daniel the 9th chapter, that there has not been so great a persecution, as so many words, as have been done upon Jerusalem, and there's got to be payback or payment for that. And no one has paid. So this is the history on that. And this was a prophecy that was written during the time of Jeremiah. And it didn't happen for about another 600-700 years in the future, during the time of Yahushai. Just, to give you, like the Lord said, the former things that come to pass and new things do I declare. This was a new thing at the time it was declared. But by the time Yahushai came on the scene and it happened, it was old thing. All right, so going back to Revelation 12, the male child Yahushai, and she brought forth a man child, meaning Mary, brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and a child was caught up unto the Most High and to his throne. All right. So let's just get a quick precept on that. We're going to go same book, Revelation 2 and 26. It says, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, because this is what Yahushua received, and we're joint heirs. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father, which goes back to what? Psalms, the 2nd chapter. And we're just going to go straight to the point. Psalms 2 and 8. Ask of me, and I shall give you the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. You know, so we're looking at links right now. We linked up Matthew 2 with Jeremiah 31. We linked up Revelation 2 with Psalms 2. These are links. All right. Now let's go from there to deal with the second part of this, because that was the first part, the ruler of nation with a rod of iron. Now let's deal with the part, and her child was caught up unto the Most High and to his throne. This is where we go to Acts, the 1st chapter, and the 9th verse, the ascension. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. Dealing with Yahushua and the disciples, they saw Yahushua actually going up into the heavens through that what Esau calls a tractor beam. It says, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven, as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel, and these 2 men were 2 angels, which also said, you men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Yahushua which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go up into heaven. Yeah, because he went up into a chariot. All right, and this is what we're reading. So there's a lot of history when dealing with Revelation, the 12th chapter. Revelation 1 and 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him. And all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so be true. So the Lord is coming back with clouds, you know. And hey, I know if there's any scoffers on the comment, but I know they mad because I know this is probably like a boring lesson to them. But hey, that's all right, man. You know, get the stepping. There's booty shaking videos out there that need to be seen. All right, Revelation 12 and 6. And the woman fled into the wilderness. The woman, as we established, is Israel. She fled into the wilderness, which is what? So-called Africa. Because something happened during this time frame, or during this time period, you know, that caused this to happen. So before we read on anymore, let's go here. We got a book here, From Babylon to Timbuktu. We're on page 84. And it says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies, matter of fact, I'm going to copy this PDF. You could type in Babylon to Timbuktu online or something like that. I'll put it in there, so see if y'all want to, you know, grab that, you know, to you know, just save that so you could look after it yourself. It says in the year 65 BC. Now this is not 65 AD. It says BC, before Yahushua. All right, so from 65 BC to 70 AD, that was a period of about roughly 105 years. Just so you could understand. So you don't get, oh, that's 65, that's only 5 years. No, this is about 105 years. In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. And that happened back then, 65 BC. In 70 AD, because remember, we were a tributary to the Roman Empire. In 70 AD, now this is going up 105 years or so, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. And this is what we're reading of in the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter. It says, during the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. Why? Because that was one of the major hubs, one of the major places where Israel would flee to during the time of any persecution, because you had a great or a large community of Israelites all throughout those places. But you also had other communities up in Asia Minor, up in Babylon, Mesopotamia, in those areas, all over the place, because Israel was scattered, according to prophecy. It says it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing Roman persecution, because these were the days of vengeance. That we're going to read a couple of verses on that in the scriptures, and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. And if y'all want to read more, you can read more. I just wanted to get the point on that. Now let's go back to Revelation 12 and let's read that again. And the woman fled into the wilderness. So the woman, being Israel, fled into the wilderness, the interiors of Africa. They fled other places also, but we focus more on the interiors of Africa because that is the key place, or the key spot where they would be at in the latter days, to be brought over here to this side of the world to serve the captivity that the Lord said that they would serve. Yokes of iron upon their head, being chained up, being servants, being handmaids, going into slavery by way of slave ships, so on and so forth. Where she had the place prepared of the Most High. Now this place is America, because they fled from Roman persecution. They fled into the wilderness, interiors of so-called Africa. Then from there, they were grabbed up and sent to where? To the place prepared of the Most High. Place prepared for what? Prepared for judgment. Okay? Now let's get a couple of precepts on that. Let's go to the book of Joel, chapter 3. And verse 6. It says, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians. Yeah, the Grecians is the Hebrew word Yawan, but we know and understand that Esau is not the Japhites, because we've done research. We've seen that all people in the beginning were brown-skinned people, and there's many pictures still left around to show you that the Japhetic people are dark-skinned people. And we know through the history, through the deviousness of Esau, that they've gone around the world, taken over people's lands, changed the names of these different lands, put their names upon it, and put themselves in the place of the people that were once there. And they've done it many times. So the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your recompense unto your own head. And right now, we're being raised up ever since 1969, 1970, up into the present time, 2022, the year of hastening the coming of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. There's been an upliftment, a raising up of the nation of Israel, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. All right. So it says, behold, I will raise them out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. Because here we lost our identity. As it says in Jeremiah 17 and 4, I believe it is. We lost our way. That's why at one point, some of us were being called Gentiles, Greeks, during the time of, the Roman Empire, and even unto this very day, until the Lord caused his light to shine upon us and brought us back to the truth of who we really are. Hosea 1 and 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass, future tense, that in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, you are the sons of the living power. So the Lord is raising up. He's raising us up now in this place where we were told that we were nothing but niggas, spooks, spics, wetbacks, or whatever the case may be. Black, Haitian, Jamaican, Barbadian, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Mexican, North American Indian. But now we're coming back to our prospective tribes. Yasha Allah of whatever tribe, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, all the way on down to Issachar. So that's where we're at in prophecy. So going back to Revelation 12, let's read that again. And the woman fled into the wilderness. Israel fled into the interiors of Africa, where she had the place prepared, and the place prepared was America, that they should feed her there 1,203 days, which breaks down into 42 months, which breaks down into 3.5 years, which is a period of, or prophetic period of 350 years. And if you want to get the breakdown on that, you have to go to the book of, Revelation, the 11th chapter breakdown that the Spirit had me do, and I went in, I covered that in that, breakdown, just to not make this too long. Because it's going to be a little long, because trying to get some thorough breakdown. Sometimes you just do like something short and sweet and to the point, and sometimes you may go a little more in depth. So now let's go to Revelation 12:7. The angel Michael, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angel fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and automatically the consensus is that fable, that so-called fable of, or Greek myth or mythology, that there was a war in heaven and Satan got cast out and his angels, and they were kicked out of heaven, no longer to be in heaven anymore. That's the furthest thing from the truth. It says, and prevailed not, neither was their place found anymore in heaven. Why was that? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 12. It says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? When we read up above this, it's speaking about the king of Babylon, and it's speaking about the power of Babylon. And it wasn't talking about the ancient Babylonians. It was talking about the modern day Babylonians, which is America, run by the Edomites. So it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? How are you fallen from that lofty position? You had the world in your hands. You had everything. You had riches. Everybody was swooning there after you. You had the world duped. You had the world deceived. How have you fallen from that status, O Lucifer, which the word Lucifer simply means light bearer or light carrier? Son of the morning, how art thou come, or old day star? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? And that's why it says in the book of Isaiah 47:1, you had your empire, but now your empire is going to be taken from you. Come down and sit in the dust. Come down from what? From that heavenly state, that heavenly position that you're in, that exalted, lofty place. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. So you're coming down off of that high horse. And that's what we're reading in Revelation 12 and in Isaiah 14. Isaiah 14:13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, which you did, planes, so on and so forth. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High, through your space shuttle system, your satellites. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, which are the Israelites, in the sides of the north, which is North America. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, which they have and do. I will be like the Most High. And you see that going on right now, big time. With all this splicing and, tapping into the Most High's creation. Whether it's human or whether it's, trees or animals or whatever the case may be. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, meaning down to a low state, to the sides of the pit, because you're going into captivity, slavery. You're going from that lofty kingly position that you don't belong in down to a proper state. They that see thee, what they looking at? What they're looking at? Satan? Huh? What? They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? So they're going to find out that you're a man, and that this whole myth about Satan being kicked out of heaven and all this madness is going to be put down. It's going to be put to silence, casting down imaginations. So going back, Revelation 12 and 9, and the great dragon was cast out. And that's what happens. When Yahushua comes back, he's going to take these devils out completely. You can read about that in the book of Revelation, the 19th chapter. You can read about that in the book of 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. We just read an account in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, about them coming down off of that lofty spot. You can read about it in Isaiah, the 34th chapter. You can read about it in Isaiah, the 63rd chapter. Because the people that would be, or the nation that would be in power in these times, would be the nation of Esau, the Edomites. All right. So let's go from there to Revelation. Well, let's read this again, and then we're going to get another precept in Revelation 20. And the great red dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. Yeah, because they're going to be taken out of their rulership, which deceiveth the whole world. Who did that? Who deceived the whole world? Who made the whole world believe that the Heavenly Father was a so-called white man? Huh? And his son. Who made the world believe that the saints or the Israelites are so-called white people? Scriptures say in Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So these are all blasphemies. You go to Revelation 13, it speaks about the blasphemies that these devils have committed. I believe Psalm 73, he causes his tongue to walk through the earth and speaks against the heavens or something along those lines. That's you, Esau. It says, which deceiveth the whole world, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels with him, meaning his technology. Whether planes, helicopters, shuttles, satellites, there's AI technology, all of this technology that these devils have, their missiles, their everything that comprises them, that gives them their power. Because the angels are known for what? For power. They're also known as messengers, but they're known as being powerful. And Esau's angels are his planes, his jets, his stealth fighters, his missiles, his helicopters, his tanks, his satellite, all of that stuff, the shuttles, all of the stuff that gives them that power or that advantage over everyone else. But that power and that advantage is going down now. So now, let's go from there to Revelation 20. Because it says he deceiveth the whole world, right? Revelation 20 and 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, this is dealing with the time period from roughly around 325 AD till around 1350 AD, during the time which they call the Renaissance period. That was 1,000 years when Satan was bound. Esau was bound, because the word Satan just simply means adversary. And understanding words a lot of times brings forth more understanding of what scriptures are speaking about. Like you read about angel, you think it's talking about just a straight up angel. But when you go into the word angel can be a messenger. You know, someone bringing a message. That's an angel also. It doesn't always necessarily mean a powerful cherubim, spiritual entity. It says Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and that was a time period when they were loosed. The adversary was loosed. You read 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. It speaks about that these devils are in opposition to everything that the Most High has established. And they're sitting in the temple of the Most High being worshipped as if they were the Most High. No other nation on the planet has done that but the nation of the so-called white people, which by a process of elimination are who? The Edomites. So it goes on to say, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. And that's the first thing they did. They deceived the nations which were in the four quarters of the earth. So now that when Yahushua and Michael the archangel come back and take this devil down in their technology and their power structure, they're not going to be able to deceive the earth anymore because they're going to be cast out and put in subjection. So going back to Revelation 12 and 10, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our power and the power of his anointed. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our power day and night, because they're going to lose their power. Remember in Isaiah 14, the Lord said he's broken the staff. He broke their staff. A staff is used for what? For rulership. A scepter is used for rulership. But if it's broken, that means that that power is lost. And they overcame it because the Lord said what? In Revelation 19, he said that Yahushua had the title King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Why? Because he's coming to take all these nations down and subdue them under himself. Salakia. And they, meaning the elect, overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. This is key. Because what we're teaching is very weighty. And it's a threat. Some will say, oh, those are just words, but these are fighting words. And they love not their lives unto the death. That's why it says strive for the truth unto death. And the Lord will reward you in so many words. I can't think of the exact wording. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And that's why they're going to come down with this last attempt to totally annihilate and destroy the nation of Israel. That's why shit's getting real out here in these streets. That's why, you got all of these mandates and legislation, and such a chokehold on, especially the food being distributed throughout this country and the world, because they have an agenda and they need people, or they're pushing people into a corner to accept that agenda so that they can push forward, so that they can subdue the whole world, because they're that demented. It says, and the dragon saw that he was cast out, and when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child, because they knew, which Herod was under the orders of the Roman Empire, that if they were able to destroy Yahushua, that they would be able to destroy the plans of Yahushua being established later on as the rightful king of Israel, and subdue all these other nations. That's why it says that those rich men that are doing all this shit to try to upset the prophecies are going to be doing what? They're going to be hiding in their shelters and talking about telling their shelters to hide them from him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. So it says, and to the woman, Israel again, were given two wings of a great eagle, a great deliverance, just like we got a great deliverance from Egypt. And we read about this earlier in the chapter, that she might fly into the wilderness, so-called Africa, into her place, America, because eventually she was brought over here, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time from the face of the serpent, which, like I said, if you want to get that time and a half a time, the 42 months, the 1,000, what was it, 1,203 score days, 3.5 weeks or 3.5 days, which is a period of 350 years. All you have to do is just watch the, I'm sure other brothers have done lessons on it, but what I can remember offhand is Revelation the 11th chapter breakdown that's in the same page of the same YouTube page of GMSInfoDoc Channel 12. It says, and the serpent was cast, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood, because they were trying to slaughter all the Israelites. So let's go from there to Luke 21 and 20. Luke 21 and 20. And that's why it's important to know this history. Luke 21, 20. And when you shall see, this is Yahushua warning the Israelites back then, about 30 some odd years before it actually happened, of this thing that was coming, that was going to be a threat to their being, in so many words. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, because those Roman armies came in like a flood, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. What desolation? The desolation of Jerusalem that was foretold to come. The abomination that maketh desolate, as we read in the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the days of vengeance, things that were written aforetime, that all things which are written may be fulfilled, because the Most High's words do not go out void. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land and wrath upon his people, because that was a bad time. It says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, meaning Israel, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem, the land, shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And that's why you still see these heathens that are in our land. But when Yahushua comes back, they're going to be wiped off of that land, clean, and it's going to start all over fresh, because it's heathenistic now. It's totally corrupt. It's totally polluted. So the Lord's got to clean it up, and He's going to clean it up with that fire. All right. So going back to Revelation 12 and 16, and the earth helped the woman. Why? Because the Israelites fled in many different directions, fleeing Roman persecution. It wasn't just into the interiors of Africa. That's just a key place to know about, because that's where, especially on the western coast of Africa, so-called Africa, is where the Israelites, mainly the three tribes, but other tribes also, but mainly the three tribes are going to be grabbed up from the western coast of Africa, to be brought to where? To her place, which is America. The earth helped the woman because Jake fled into all different nations, different places for refuge. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Yeah, because they were not able to get all of the Israelites. So when they fled and the Romans couldn't, the flood of the armies of the Romans couldn't get them, then that's how the earth helped the woman. It helped her to escape from those from the Roman military. It says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. And that happened during 70 AD. And that's going to happen now, during the time of Jacob's trouble, which keep the commandments of the Most High and have the testimony of Yahushua, because this knowledge is the greatest threat to Esau's NWO. All them truthers that go out there and they speak about the money system, they speak about, different so-called conspiracies, they speak about, different agendas and different things that these devils are doing, and just their plans as a whole. Those are threats, but the biggest threat is this gospel that we're teaching. That's why it says, which keep the commandments of the Most High and have the testimony of Yahushua. And that's why it says that, they were going to bring great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. Because this is the main threat, what we're teaching. We are the main threat to this devil's existence. And that's why he tried to kill all the male child, out of Jerusalem at the time, because he wanted to get the main man that was going to be the head or leader of this, whole thing that we see going on right now, this whole kingdom, empire that's going to be soon to be established on the planet Earth and replace all of the other empires and kingdoms that are on the earth today. So with that, I pray that you brothers and you few sisters have been edified. And to the next time I say, Shalom.